In this Burnout Extra, I'm going to show you how to do an oil change on a 2004 Toyota Camry. The first thing that you're going to want to do is pop the hood and actually loosen the oil filler cap. That will allow the oil to drain much better when you have the oil drain plug pulled out. So that's the first thing I'm going to do right now, is right in the driver's seat, right by your legs, there will be a lever to pull the hood. After you've loosened the oil filler cap, now you're gonna wanna come underneath the car to the oil pan. There's a couple things to note here. One is, if you just came from a long drive, the oil is actually gonna be too hot. So you can burn yourself by loosening this drain plug right now and getting oil down your arm. To make sure that the engine cools down, this will only take about 10 to 15 minutes. Once again, that's just letting the car sit while off. On the flip side, it's actually good to run the car if the car hasn't been run in a while. If it's been sitting and you want to do an oil change, it's good to start it for about 10, maybe 30 seconds to a minute, and that ultimately gets all the oil pumped through the system so that it drains out better. But like I said, be very careful if it's hot. This can very easily burn you. At this point, now we're ready to loosen the oil drain plug. Make sure you have some form of pan to catch the oil once the oil shoots out. These Toyotas are super easy to do oil changes on, and so luckily the oil pan's right here and the drain comes right out the side. Ultimately, we have a catch pan, but you can use anything that will hold the amount of oil that goes into the car. I always like to double up on the wrenches if you can. This will give you a little bit more leverage when loosening the bolt, and obviously you want to go to the left. Another thing that's important to note is most cars will have some form of little gasket like this that goes on the oil drain plug. So you want to make sure that this gasket you don't lose. That ultimately helps the seal on the oil pan a little bit better and makes it so that the oil doesn't come out. So once again, make sure you have your bolt and then your gasket as well. You're going to want to wipe these down with a rag or a paper towel or something like that, and make sure that they're free of the old oil, but you don't want to lose either one of these things because you need them both to go back on the car. Next, you're going to want to take off the oil filter. This oil filter on this Camry actually faces up. So if you can grab it with your hand, that's awesome. Just spin it to the left. If not, you might need an oil filter wrench, and those are just wrenches that go on the oil filter. However, most of the time you should be able to spin it off with both hands if you can get your hands on it. This one here is tucked up right underneath the oil pan inside here. And once again, because it is facing up, it will be filled with oil, just like a cup would with water. So you're gonna kind of want to bring it down and tip it into the pan that you're using currently. Sometimes what happens is this black rubber ring will get stuck on where the oil filter goes on. And so you want to make sure that comes off with the oil filter, because the new filter will have a new one on it. So you don't want double rings there. You want just one to help seal the oil filter. So once again, when you're taking that off, just make sure it comes with it. So now it's time to put on the new oil filter. And this one here has a little plastic cover, which obviously you want to remove because that will prevent the filter from filtering oil. So it's just a little plastic protection thing there. You can get rid of that. Once again, this is the new black rubber seal. You want to make sure that came off with the old one. And then what I like to do on the new filter is I like to put the date that you changed the oil, and I like to put the mileage of the car. This allows either the next mechanic to look underneath and say, okay, that's when it was last changed. Or if the owner of the car is not sure, maybe their sticker on their windshield fell off or something like that, they can go underneath and see exactly when this was put in, both for mileage and for the date as well. From here, another thing I like to do on these filters is actually take a little bit of old oil and rub it around this rubber seal right here. Just go around it once or twice is totally fine. What that does is it actually allows me to tighten it on in a more smooth fashion. It kind of glides on and holds a better seal once in place. So once again, just dab a little bit of old oil. That's the simplest trick to do that. At this point, you can put in the drain plug and put on the new oil filter. Although we needed the oil filter wrench to get off the old oil filter, you actually don't need it to put on the new one. As much as you can get it hand tight is totally fine. These things actually seem to tighten over time and ultimately will seal just fine. So get that hand tight. And that's actually a very similar case scenario with this drain bolt as well. You're not going to want to double up on the wrenches. You're going to want to use just one. Know that you can strip this bolt if you pull or push too tight. When you're putting it back in, just make sure that you have it what they would call snug and that you don't over tighten the bolt, because you don't want to strip this oil pan or that is a major repair coming your way. So once you've tightened the oil filter down nice and snug, as well as the oil drain plug, you're actually good to lower the car and add in some new oil. At this point, you're good to add in the oil. Now, this car actually takes two different types of oil. This is a 2004 Toyota Camry with a 2.4 liter engine. This engine can actually take either 520 or 5-weight 30 oil. What you choose is ultimately up to you, but people run those two oil types in this specific car. Today we are using 5-weight 20 full synthetic oil. Full synthetic is ultimately good for the longevity of your car if you care about your engine, but you could also do a synthetic blend if you're doing it at home. At this point, what you want to do is grab a funnel and put it in the oil filler cap that we removed earlier. As I mentioned, it takes 5-weight 20 oil, and it actually takes 4 full quarts. So all you need is 4 quarts of oil to add in right now. Once you've poured all 4 quarts of oil into the engine, you are good to put on that filler cap that we removed first in the very beginning of the video. And then it's actually a good idea to go into the car and start the car. Let the engine run for about 10 seconds and then turn off the car, come back out under the hood, and then you want to check the dipstick. At that point, the oil amount that you put in, which is the 4 quarts, should read correctly on this dipstick. And if it doesn't, then hopefully you just need to add a little more to make sure it's at the right capacity within the lines on the dipstick. But once again, running it for about 10 seconds will actually do the trick, no problem. What that does is gets the oil all throughout the system of the engine and makes it so that the new oil is throughout the entire system. Like I said, run it for 10 seconds, check the dipstick, and you should be good. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like button, definitely subscribe to our channel, be sure to check us out. Once again, we're the Burnout Show if you haven't seen us before. Thank you for watching, and hopefully this helped.